Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is an exciting time for our company as we launch our latest product, GovCase. Bryan Schmidt and Scott Boedigheimer will be presenting for us today, and Bryan serves as Arctic IT's Enterprise Solution Architect for a variety of our community-based solutions, including GovCase. He's joined today by our Vice President of Business Development, Scott. And Scott and his team are working with our Microsoft partners and connecting with a variety of state and local agencies to ensure GovCase is designed to solve today's case management challenges. We'd like to send special thanks to Microsoft employees who took time out of their day to join us. During the presentation, if you have any questions, you can use the chat box or the Q&A box, and at the end of the demo, I will read those aloud for Bryan and Scott to answer. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Scott.
Thanks, Brooke. Next slide, Bryan. You already heard about us. Yeah, so we'll get into the presentation. So Arctic IT's partnership in SLG, we've been working in SLG for a while. We'll talk a bit about that. Why the Microsoft Cloud Platform is a foundation for what we are going to introduce today as GovCase. And then the details about GovCase, we'll spend a little time kind of teeing it up in PowerPoint. Bryan will go through a solution overview and the various components that we are building out and have built out in our GovCase solution. We'll get into the code. Bryan will actually open up the hood, have you take a look at what we've got available so far. And then as Brooke said, we'll have time for Q&A at the end. Awesome. So Arctic IT, for those of you that don't know, we've been working in, we've been a Microsoft partner for a very long time. And our focus is really on building deploying business applications in the modern workplace. We've been a Microsoft partner really since the beginning, since the foundation. We are a Microsoft Gold partner across a number of different competencies. Our core emphasis is really around CRM, case management, customer service, ERP, and all the underlying infrastructure for those solutions. We are best practice and compliance minded with everything we do. The majority of the work we do is in the public sector. So we have to be security and compliance minded. We definitely take a security first approach to everything we do in all of our service offerings. We have a depth of expertise across, historically what was the commercial cloud, the Microsoft commercial cloud. More recently, we've been doing work for our clients in the government community cloud. We were one of the first to deploy a solution in the government community cloud. We have a proven, well-tested implementation methodology that we've been refining for many years. We really implement tailored solutions. We're not building things from the ground up. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but we're starting with excellent Microsoft foundational capabilities in Dynamics and the Power Platform. And we're really taking what we had done historically and fine-tuning it for clients. And we took all that expertise and really built it into what you're going to see today in GovCase. We do offer comprehensive lifecycle services in the GCC and in the commercial cloud, meaning we continue to stay involved with our clients as they go through the Microsoft Dynamics lifecycle updates, upgrades, and make sure that they continue to get value out of those solutions. And we are a disadvantaged business entity. We are an Alaskan Native corporation and a Small Business Association 8A. We are owned by Doyon Limited, which is an Alaska Native Corp. So we get some contract set-asides. There's a previous webinar on that. I'm not going to go into that in depth, but we can shortcut the basically the contracting process for our clients because of our 8A status. I mentioned we work in the public sector. We do work in the federal space. We work a lot in the travel space, travel, government, and enterprise. Our heritage is in the commercial side of the house, basically Alaska-based businesses. What we're here really focused on today is our emphasis on state and local government. So we've been working in state and local government space now for quite a few years, deploying Dynamics and Power Platform-based solutions for our clients. So here are a couple things we're hearing as we operate in that state and local government space. And a lot of this has changed over the past couple of years as we've gone through pandemic-related lockdowns. But this part of it really hasn't changed. It's just gotten more clear that the entities we're dealing with are very siloed. And that's making it tough for them to collaborate across departments. So the foundation of Microsoft, the cloud, and the Teams-based tools and Outlook and everything make it easier to collaborate across departments. Expectations from internal constituents and external constituents, your residents, have changed. I mean, when people are applying for service these days, whether it's a building permit or social services, they don't want to go stand in a queue at City Hall or at the Health and Human Services offering. They're expecting to engage with the government agencies in a digital way. And the solution that we're talking about really supports that change. Process automation, there's too many, we still see this, there's just way too many broken processes, too many steps in the approval chain, too many manual steps. Enabling workflows to some degree, not overwhelming, but to some degree really makes it easier so that the folks that work for the agencies as well as the residents know where things stand and their applications and their responses and their cases can move through in an efficient and effective way. And the last thing we're hearing is hybrid's here to stay. Even in government, there's still this, you have to have the ability for people to be able to engage with the government entity and work for the government entity in a way that allows for remote use. Whether it's a day from home, your kid's daycare provider can't make it that day and you got to be able to work from home. Hybrid's here to stay, and the solutions that we're going to talk about today work well in that environment. You don't have to go through enabling technologies, VPNs, et cetera. It's just available and able to work really from anywhere. All right, so why the Microsoft Cloud Platform? At this point, I'm going to hand it off to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that introduction and an overview. So one of the reasons that we've built this GovCase solution is that we've taken a dependency on the Microsoft Cloud Platform to deliver all these services. And part of that reason is that the Microsoft Dynamics 365, the Microsoft 365 apps, and the whole platform with the Power Platform and Azure really provide a solid framework for us to be able to build industry-specific solutions that meet specific needs in the marketplace. And that's where this platform being hosted either in the commercial cloud or the government cloud really matters. And because Microsoft has invested so heavily in this overall platform, it's allowed us to really bring some great services and great functionality for our shared clients. So let's dive into a couple different areas of this. So another reason why we picked the Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform is the ability to do integrations in ways that most departments, when we work with them, they have legacy applications that they just can't replace. So it behooves us to make sure that we are providing an ability to integrate and exchange information with those existing legacy systems. And because that's just the nature of these government entities, that they have to continue to move forward, provide better services, but slowly over time. But so this integration becomes a really important aspect, and that's where the Power Platform and Azure really come into play to support that capability on top of with all the other Dynamics 365 and Power Microsoft apps. Collaboration is a really key element for government agencies, and we're starting to see more adoption of the Microsoft 365 stack, deployment of Teams, and most entities use Outlook and Exchange and the Word products already, but we're seeing a great upswing in utilization of Teams and SharePoint and the overall collaboration within the organization to be able to streamline that interdepartment and improve that communication within the team. So it's really important that we have the ability to leverage those capabilities and bring those to bear for these government agencies. And the last aspect that we are able to bring is the great reporting and analytics capability that are centered around Power BI, Cortana Intelligence, but also being able to just display graphics and dashboards and charts and views and queries of information that really change the game for these government agencies in ways that they haven't been able to do in the past. We find that many are still using spreadsheets and legacy applications that don't have these graphical reporting capabilities. So it's really important to be able to show them how these analytics and out-of-the-box functionality supports them. So obviously, this is a really important aspect for the application because we're working with these government agencies. Security, it has to be the top priority when we're talking to these agencies and departments. Compliance is really an important element, so we always strive to make sure that the Dynamics 365 functionality that they need is supported and available in the GCC for these prospects, and they understand what they gain from that, from not only from FedRAMP compliance, but also Section 508 for their WACG and the HIPAA compliance. So we really focus on compliance standards, security of the data. We get to leverage existing encryption, high availability, data protection at rest and in transit that comes with the solution. And then we get to build on that from the Dynamics 365 and Power Platform perspective, being able to use role-based security to apply that down to the individual and what they can see and deliver that information that they need to support that cross-department collaboration, working with the same record, but yet protecting the key information that only the permitted people should have access to. So it's really important that we leverage that whole stack of security-minded features to bring that for clients. And Microsoft is always building out new functionality for additional security services, including fraud protection, data leak, and those are being delivered in Azure and other services. And we're starting to look at opportunities, a way we can bring those governance applications for clients to be able to deploy and use for their purposes. And then we just love the fact that Microsoft is investing so heavily in cybersecurity because that's an investment that we don't need to make as a Microsoft partner. We get to bring all that investment and security work to our clients and help them understand that when you're moving to the cloud, you're getting this investment and you're getting the most secure cloud platform that you can get on the market today. So now that we've talked a little bit about why we've selected this as a platform, let's move into more specifics around GovCase itself. So GovCase is built on the Microsoft Cloud, and for all the reasons that we just talked about, we're getting the mobility capability that comes out of the box with Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. Security, as we talked about, is already there. Cloud lifecycle management, so we get the feature capabilities and the updates that come with a Dynamics 365 platform. We get to deliver that to our clients as well. And then because we have the integrations and the Microsoft 365 collaboration apps, we get to bring that into the overall GovCase. So it's really a great reason for us to build this GovCase solution out for government entities on top of the Microsoft Cloud. So right now, we've designed GovCase as a state and local government first application or suite of applications. And we've got a few different specific apps that we're going to talk about today and give you a little bit of time to demo and get a sneak peek at some of these applications. But it's really important to understand that we're focusing initially on the case management lifecycle, giving your teams, your health and human services teams, that 360 view of service delivery for your constituents, your programs, and other types of referrals type of programs that you might make available for your citizens in your region. So it's really important to be able to improve service delivery, and measure your program outcomes to be able to say how many residents are you serving, how many are you denying because they aren't eligible. Collect all those metrics to be able to use for reporting, and we'll dive into each of these specific areas. So the grant management, this is an application that we built out on top of inside the GovCase application. So what it is intended to allow you to manage your block grants that you receive from funding sources such as the federal or state level. That you might be able to say, okay, I received this block grant, or I can manage the application of that to that block grant. the award of that block grant, and then creating the subsequent programs and defining the specific eligibility so that your internal staff or your citizens can understand the criteria for participation in those block grants, and then collect all the data that is needed. So this is a really great application to support the ability from, you know, applying for the grant all the way through to actually creating your internal programs and then managing all the delivery of whether it be a service or whether it be financial funding for those block grants or grant programs, and then be able to collect and produce specific reports that are needed for those granting agencies to prove that you've actually utilized those funds as expected, and can generate the required reporting, whether it be periodic, monthly, or quarterly or annual reports that need to be included. So, and we do design this to be integrated to your financial system. Sometimes that's Dynamics 365 Finance, other times it's not. So, we have a lot of experience in providing this integration with many different financial applications. And then along with that grant management, there's the program management. So you typically have two different teams, one team that's managing the grant and the applications itself, and then maybe another team that's actually looking at the programs themselves, reviewing the applications for those programs, either approving or denying, and working with clients to make sure that they're participating in the proper programs, getting all the benefits that should be available to them, and then make sure that you have the data is, you know, deduplicated. You want to try and reduce the duplicate citizen data as much as possible, especially when you're working with multiple departments. So you want to try and keep that data clean. And we've got some great capabilities with, you know, Bing Maps. We've got some integrations there, as well as, you know, integrating to other ArcGIS, the Esri ArcGIS systems that could provide mapping capability if required. And then, of course, what program wouldn't be useful without actually managing the cases? So for a Health and Human Service Department, for example, it's really important for them to be able to manage the individual services. And then if your agency is providing caseworkers and collecting all the case notes and assessments and so forth, all the assets around service delivery for those members, or you can actually manage the referrals of those citizens out to other agencies. So you can manage and then collect the payments so that if you're paying an agency on behalf of this individual or funding their, whether it be education or substance abuse counseling, this application can track that and support the ability to integrate and send those payment requests over into the finance system to be processed. So it's really important to manage that whole life cycle of the case and collect that data. And then obviously a new feature that we're including in GovCase is the ability to communicate with SMS text. That's a new feature that's coming out with Azure Communication Services that we've integrated into the overall suite of applications. And that sounds like that's coming in the GCC at some point in the future. But for right now, that is an option that's available to be able to enable workflows and automate these steps to engage with your citizens and the people you're providing services to. But then it's also important to measure the outcomes so that your caseworkers can report that information to the granting agencies. They need to measure the outcomes for each of those cases. So that's where you provide that full life cycle. And then optionally, if needed, we can provide an integration to your electronic health record system, the EHR through the HL7 interface, if you're familiar with that, so that we can reduce duplicate data entry for either your clients or cases that you're already managing through an EHR system. And then we've got the citizen portal. So this is the final piece of it, to actually the last mile of providing the services to the members, allowing them to go in and submit their applications through the portal, see their profile information, run pre-qualification to see if they're eligibility or if they're eligible for those programs, and then view their service status and get updates. And if one of the government staff need to request additional information, such as proof of residency or utility bill example, they can actually upload documents through this portal to be able to attach or provide to the caseworker or the people that are managing those programs and the applications. So the portal is a really important element to be able to provide this capability for your members.
As you transition, Brian, I was just going to make a comment. I meant to make it earlier. I didn't get off mute quick enough. One of the questions that came up as we were dealing with a county was, can we validate essentially the address to ensure that they're within the boundaries of the county or the city or wherever the agency is where they provide services? And that's part of the value of being on the Microsoft cloud. I mean, we've got the ability to tap into services on Azure, Bing Maps, things like that, to validate that that address falls within whatever geo fence we create out there. So another reason why, we could have gone off and built this completely separate. We built it in the Microsoft cloud because foundationally there's so much security, communication, and other services available. It just makes total sense to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Scott. Good point. All right, so with that, we'll change over and do a quick review of the GovCase solution. So what I'm going to do first is you'll notice right away that again I'm operating within a browser. There's no application that I need to install on my local machine. This is all accessible through a browser, and that's where Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform provide this capability to use the application, have access to it on any device, anytime, anywhere. So it's really important to keep the information in the cloud, keep it secure, and manage access to the overall applications. Not only the data, but the applications that will act on the data that's in that overall system. So you'll see that we've got a few different applications here. I'm going to touch on all three of these, and then we'll focus on the portal for a few minutes. So starting out with the grant management, just to show you a couple examples. And again, this is all sample data. There's just some example processes that we've set up in here. So you might have received or applied for a substance abuse recovery program from SAMHSA. So it could be a federal program that you applied. So I can capture the codes, the website information. I can track the status of that application, whether I've applied for it, whether it's in processing or approved and it's been allocated, the dates of the program that are being managed from the funding agency. And from here, you actually then create the fund allocation. So you actually saying, I received, $1 million from the federal side, from SAMHSA, for this program or for this grant, but there also was a state match that goes along with that. So this is from the awards side, we're collecting all three of these from multiple different levels into one grant fund allocations to say these are all the sources of money that actually went into this. And then from here, you can actually then say, all right, now we're going to allocate those funds to individual programs. So I might have, for example, 2 counties that I'm supplying funds to. And in this case, I'm providing $160,000 to one county and $262,000 to another. So it shows that, from all the allocated funds, this is the amount of funds that have been allocated, and then how many total funds are remaining. So this is where you can see that just about half of the overall funds that are still can be allocated from the overall grant. And then if you actually have grant committees, you can define that grant committee, who are the members, track the meeting minutes, their positions on those grants. We can capture that information so that you have a record of that for your reporting. And then again, from the grant side, you actually now can track all the specific service requests. So you can, when these service requests are created, the program that I select will auto-populate the related grant for that service request, so that I can collect all the different services or requested services from all the different members in our county or your city that applied for this program. So I can summarize or roll up all that information and then use that for your reporting. And then the same thing is true for payments. I can track all the different payments that have been made, whether they were paid to a company or to an individual. So I can track all that history in one place. And then from here, I can generate the reports that are specific to this program. Sometimes they're very unique to the individual program, so we don't generate a lot of these reports out of the box. We try and provide these queries, and if there's specific formatted reports, we build those out with what's called SQL reporting services inside the application to meet that specific graphical reporting. So from here, so now that's just a brief introduction to the overall grant and managing the income and the programs that go along with that. Now I'm going to switch hats from that grant manager and go over to the program manager. So now as a program manager, I want to be able to see all the different programs that I'm managing, and some of them are grant funded, some of them maybe are just funded by your local agency or your state or city. So you actually have the ability to track and create multiple programs, whether they're grant funded or not. So you can use this as a way to manage your budget to actual for all the programs that you're making available for your citizens, and track all the status of those. And this is where an example of some of the dashboards that you can use to be able to see all the information in one quick view, see all the active or the new service requests that have come in, and be able to track all that information as it's moving forward. And obviously, a key aspect of that, and so let's switch over and look at the program itself. So let's dive into one of those programs. And one of the aspects that I want to show you is this notion of a rules eligibility. So this is a new capability that we're including. So now as a program manager, I'm here looking at the program definition itself. So I've got all this information about the program, capturing staffing requirements, etc. But then this is where we roll up the program budget from that funding source. So I can see all the different fund awards that were applied for this program, but we can also track fund transfers. So if you see that one program is really popular and another one isn't being used as much as you expected, you can actually have those fund transfers between to track where those reallocation of program funds are being applied. So you can take that information and roll it up onto the overall program itself. And then from here, of course, I can see that there was $130,000 was the original budget, and all the payments that were applied, $2,400 have been made or have been expended related to this program. So that shows that remaining budget. So it's a rolling amount that I can manage and watch over time. Now, one key feature that we're including with GovCase is this ability to have a eligibility rules engine that will automatically run and be configured. So it isn't that I have to go in and do a bunch of coding to actually change these eligibility rules for each of the different programs. I can actually, through configuration, set up records within the system and define the eligibility criteria. So what we do is we have a system where we define that there's a rule and we capture those scoring criteria. So in this case, it's to be eligible, I have to be over 18. I have to have a maximum monthly income of $3,500, and I have to be a resident of this service area. So that's one, and we've got different mechanisms for how we calculate and collect this information, but you can also have a client supplied. So you can have questions in here that you would post onto the portal and then ask that input of the person when they're submitting their request for the services to establish whether they would be eligible or not. So I can just drill into one of these scoring rules as an example and just show you what it means. So I can have a calculation that says, are they a member in this service area? It's either 1 or 0. They either do or they don't. If they do, they get a score of 1. Are they, is the minimum age? Are they over 18? There again, this can be a variable. So I could use this as a mechanism to, in certain cases, maybe if their client income is in a range, I can assign different scoring values based on their income range. And then that could be a sliding scale to establish eligibility for the different programs. So that's a way you can say, all right, if they get a score of 0, they're ineligible. If they get a score of 1 to 6, they may require a review to make sure that that a staff can look at this and they can choose to override, or they can just say no, they're not eligible. But if they get a score of 7, then they are eligible for these services. So this is a way that, once you define this rule, it can then be applied on this program to automatically determine whether someone is eligible for that program or not. And if the criteria changes, let's say during the middle of the year, it isn't, we're seeing that people aren't eligible, you can obviously modify those rules if needed, or if permitted, I should say. And then with that program, you get to see all the different requests for services. So you can see that Alicia has applied multiple times for different purposes, and you can see the date and what the status is. And then so you can track the traffic of all the requests that have come in over that period of time, and then be able to say, okay, now for all those requests, here are all the payments that have been applied over that period of time. So we can track the expenditures by month and to who they went to, whether it was to the individual or spent to a company or an agency paying on her behalf. Was, for example, like a utility bill, for example. So that's a quick program overview. And again, from here, so I got another program that I can show you that is the substance abuse program, and there was another scenario where you can see each program can have its own criteria. And again, these are just some examples, but there's lots of different options here to define the eligibility rules for each of these individual programs. And from there, then we can see all the requests. So again, as a program manager, I'm not going to be going through it, or I would be going through these requests, especially any that are new, to make sure that they are either eligible, sending a request back if they're maybe need review, and didn't supply enough information, so I can communicate that back to the client to submit information that would help them become eligible. And maybe, for example, they didn't completely fill out their profile. That's on the portal. They have the ability to fill out their entire profile of how many are in their household, what does their income and expense look like, so that if they haven't supplied that income and expense record, they're going to score 0 on the rules engine. And what it's going to do is it's going to drive them and say, hey, you're getting a 0 because you didn't provide this on your profile. So now the citizen can get feedback right away that they need to provide that detail. And then from here, so now I'll switch hats again, and we'll move over into the case management. So now you can see that I've provided all the different programs, but now what I'm doing is I'm actually one of those caseworkers, and I'm providing services. So I can use this, pick on Alicia again, and now with this you can actually see all the details about Alicia, her status, the communication that's been happening, and so I could send SMS text messages and they show up in the timeline in here, so I could send and receive SMS texts, track phone calls and so forth. And what we do, so you can track all the information about the individual, their address, skills and education, employment. So if the individual comes into the office and you're actually working with them one-on-one, that would be one of the tasks of the intake person, is to go through, verify their address, the contact information, maybe their income and expense details, so that I can roll all that up, whether it's earned income or unearned income, and this can then be used. So the portal or the member can actually edit and update their information on the portal, or they can do this directly when they're working with an individual in the office or at home. So they could take the laptop or tablet with them, work with the individual at their place where they live to collect this information. And one key feature that we apply here is actually segregating the data. So this, for example, the program manager and the grant manager would not have access to the client profile. So for example, this is a case where we're using that role-based security to provide private information for the individual. So maybe their driver's license information. I can capture TANF details. I can capture program eligibility, or maybe insurance information. So who is her primary provider? And so this is intended to be all the different services that are being provided, but I want to keep a lot of this information protected, so that because it's the case detail, they may see that they requested services, but we want to keep the actual case information private, so that it's being protected from those people that don't have permission to see that detail. And so I want to just quickly run through, so you can see that I ran this earlier today to show the eligibility. So I can run that process again. And what it does is it actually, so there again, I'm simulating Alicia coming in, I'm updating her profile, I've verified everything's current, and now I run that process. And what it does is it actually recreates that eligibility to be able to say, okay, well, she's not eligible, or she's eligible for this program, but this one requires review. So it shows you that immediate information, and then we actually are able to present that information on the portal, or the state, Alicia could actually do this same process on the portal as well, so she can see that list of programs and be able to take action from that. So this is a great capability for these members to be able to, for program managers to expose the programs, and then members to be able to automatically determine or provide an automatic way establish eligibility for these programs. Now from here, this is where you now see that there can be cases, and where I manage all the different cases in the system, so I can have, you know, all sorts of different, like, could it be child support, it could be domestic violence scenarios, it can be, you know, financial assistance, so you can see all the different case types that are available, and I can track all the information on those cases. So I can maybe pick this one as an example, and I can see if it's whether it's grant related or not, and then who's a part of that case, and track all the different notes, incidents, safety plans, and everything. So now I'm as a caseworker, I'm using this as a way to manage all the information about the services that I'm actually providing to the individual, whether that be counseling or just straight up financial assistance. But that you may put some requirements on that to make sure that you're still providing maybe training or education to help them become self-sufficient in that scenario. And so that we define the cases as being a scenario where you're providing service to an individual, so it's intended to be a one-on-one, but we also have this capability to provide a family plan. So if you're involving an entire family in providing services, you can actually manage that plan from that high level. So we can, maybe we'll pick this one. And you can see an example of how all these different, all the different services that are being provided, and how all whether the case, the placement, and all the different aspects and services that are being delivered to the entire family on one dashboard. So that's a great capability to not only put focus on the individual, but also on the whole family and all the services that are being provided to that family. And of course, you know, it wouldn't be complete without being able to measure the outcomes. So you can assess whether it was a partially success or successful outcome in helping the Blue family through this scenario of becoming addiction-free. You can set some dates and then capture the outcome activities for the goals and notes and assessments that were created to establish that outcome. And then if there were any referrals that were driven from that outcome, this is where you can go to see those referrals after they're complete. Okay, and that's a quick run through of some of the core features of the GovCase solution. There's a lot more that I haven't shown, but we don't have enough time to go through that. So with that, I'm going to switch back, and that's hopefully you see how this application can provide some great benefits to your agency to manage your cases, manage your grants, your applications, and your programs for your organization.
Thanks, Brian. Nice job. Thanks for making it clear when you're like logging in as a citizen or a person for the city. I think that helps make it really clear. Just kind of wrap things up. We got time for questions, but you know, what we're trying to do with this solution is make it better for the folks using it in the government agencies, the workers for the county of whatever, or municipality, and better outcomes for the residents as well. So I think there's benefits across both those things. So just to recap, manage the allocation of funds and reporting requirements. Brian talked about grant management. Where does the money come from? How's it being spent? And the reporting requirements we've heard are quite onerous, and we help make sure that the reporting is accurate back to the grant issuers that provided the funding. You're providing a holistic picture of health and human services programs and outcomes, both for, again, for the folks in those agencies within the county or city, as well as the residents can log in and see where their applications are, where their cases are, and so on. And then the last piece is really allow things to happen 24/7. I mean, folks work 8 to 5. It's not always convenient for them to engage with the city, with the county during that time period when they're in school or at work. So with the portal that we provided, they can interact and get up to date 24/7. So with that, I think we are rolling into questions. And I think, Brooke, you've got a couple questions that have been asked so far.
Yes, I do. So first, what Microsoft licenses are required to use this product?
So right now, I can answer that question, Scott. So the licenses that we recommend is that at a minimum, they need the Power App per user or per app licenses for the users, but they definitely can use the customer service licenses as well. There would be some Azure consumption depending on which Azure services that they require, but whether it be integration, the SMS text for the communication services, or for additional storage. So there's multiple different options for Azure spend, but it primarily would be the Power Apps per app per user, and then the Dynamics 365 customer service is an optional.
Great, thank you, Brian. And another question is, do all the GovCase solutions share a resident database? So every agency has visibility to any and all programs that a citizen has applied for, and the status of those applications and cases.
Yep, we certainly could do that, and that's one of the reasons we built it out on top of the Power Platform, is it allows us the ability to integrate to those external systems to replicate that data. It's really a master data management question around where does that master citizen record reside? Is it going to be in the Dynamics 365 CRM system, or is that through some other system? So there's definitely a scenario where each of the clients that we would work with, we'd want to figure out where that master record is, and synchronizing updates from either Dynamics 365 or the GovCase solution out to those external systems, whether it be programs, funds, allocations, whatever it is, or bringing that contact information back into the system from an existing solution that's the county or the SLG organization has already. So that's a by design.
I understood the question slightly differently. I mean, so we're sharing data across the various agencies, departments, programs, and so on. So the citizens got a full view of what's happening, regardless of if they're applying for service or there's cases going on related to that service, right? And then we can enable in GovCase what agencies see what, but it's not, a citizen doesn't have to create multiple logins and enter their same information multiple times, because we're sharing, or we have the ability to share that data across the GovCase applications, correct?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, thank you.
And we do have a couple more questions. If you do have questions and you haven't typed them in yet, you can use that questions box, and we'll be happy to answer those. The next one is, how do you secure PII, or personally identifiable information?
So what we do, there's multiple different ways to secure that PII information. Number one is where we start is the role-based security. So for each person that would have access to log into the overall solution and see the data, there's a specific role that's assigned to the individual. And with that security role, it defines the permissions to exactly the fields and the tables and the rows and the fields that they can actually preview or view. So role-based security is kind of the core of that capability, but then we can drill that down even to field level, so that, for example, if you have a social security number, might be a bit of PII. You might have the person that is like a case manager that would be able to enter that information on the contact record, or they can enter it themselves. But then anybody inside the organization, they would have access to is to be able to view maybe the last 4 digits. So that's where the field level security comes into play, where you can mask information. Maybe the field is there, or you just hide the field altogether for a person that does not have permissions to that. So PII is allocated based on the sensitivity of the individual and assigned to the security role.
And everything's encrypted at rest and encrypted in transit as well?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. And then how does the portal differ from a standard 311 service?
Well, the portal is designed to work specifically with the overall solution. So this is designed for your members to be able to have access to their information, their profile, their programs, their services. A 311 system is more around, just signing up to receive notification or submit requests. So the 311 is really targeted at maybe the city services directly, whether it be, fixing a pothole or public utilities or something like that. This is intended to be more private information that I want to be able to capture or work with the Health and Human Services Department. So it's targeted at a slightly different audience, but yet, it does serve some of the same purposes as being able to expose the portal for those citizen members to be able to access and work
we can certainly link from their 311 site to our portal if somebody is interested in finding out more about services, applying for services, or checking the status of cases, correct?
Correct. Actually, right, correct. So I can come onto the portal and they could use this as a way to just see what programs are available, or I can see my program eligibility, like you saw before. So you see that these individual records that I just created are out here now, so that those two, from the time I ran it before, but then I can use this for tracking all of my services and all the service requests that I have, how I'm interacting with the city, or the county. So again, if the 311 is intended for a slightly different purpose, this is intended for my private information and me receiving services as a citizen working with this agency.
Awesome. Thanks, Bryan.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't have any other questions that I see here. If you have any other questions after the presentation, you can always email us or give us a call. And then one other thing that we just want to let you know is that we want to invite you all to our next presentation, Why the Government Community Cloud. And that one is on September 7th.
Awesome. Thank you all for attending today. Here are our genericized email addresses, I guess, but feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We're happy to answer any specific questions about any your city, county, agency, if you're a Microsoft rep, any of your clients, and anything you might have to ask us. Thanks for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending. Have a great day.